So I understand that the Sunday school service was regarding joy. So this sermon, although short, will be falling in line with joy also, because you've got to have joy to help others. Now, I'm not sure exactly where the church was going a year ago. I know where it's going now. It's more defined. It's more purpose-oriented. And I think it's helping others. And even though sometimes we need help, we can always find someone that needs help even more than what we do. And with that comes a great responsibility for the church. The church is supposed to be a place where people could come and just worship the Lord. But it's hard to worship the Lord whenever your burdens are heavy. When you're going through some things that you may not want to share with others. But let me challenge you on this. If you can find the courage, if you can find the strength to share with someone, at that moment, the burden is released or relieved somewhat. Now, the burdens are heavy sometimes, and sometimes they're light. But nevertheless, whether it's heavy or light, there's still a burden. And it's still an opportunity for the Satan to come in and steal your joy, steal your happiness, steal the foundation that you claim to have when it comes to the Lord. But rest assured, when in doubt, help others. When in doubt, help others. If you turn to John, the first chapter, verse 14, I think this is pretty familiar scriptures for most, but I'm going to read it in a New Life Translation, and I'm not sure what Chris is going to... he's going to do it in the NIV. Let me read mine first and see how close it comes to the NIV. So the Word became human and made his home among us. Now listen to this. This is exciting here. This is where joy comes in. So the Word became human, and he made his home amongst us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness. And we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. Now, John wrote this, and you've got to look at John's life. And at times you can question his writings, but you can never question his love for Jesus. John first believed in Jesus. Then he had disbelieved in Jesus. Then he wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Then he became a believer once again after the resurrection. Then he talked about Jesus so much that the Roman Empire got tired of hearing it, had him arrested and exiled to the Isle of Patmos. He probably outlived the apostles, or most of them. He outlived most of his friends. But then he began to think about the 3.5 years that he spent with Jesus. How much Jesus helped other people. How much Jesus inspired other people. How much Jesus loved other people. Now, it's not so hard for us to believe that Jesus was all of these things. I mean, we read it throughout his word, not only by John the Baptist, but by other writers in the Bible also. But you can always find a spot where Jesus found time to help other people. His own needs were always put on the back burner. His sleep, his eating was always put on the back burner. He always wanted to help others. And I think this church is well on the course of fulfilling that ministry. Even though we're small in numbers, again, we never put God in a box. So there's an endless supply of people needing us. But there's also an endless supply of joy that we can give them. Now, as I remember and came across a couple of people last night, and Sis and John and other people ran into the same people I did, and or saw the same people I did. Today, I wonder where they're at this moment. Are they in church? Are they saved? Are they helping others, or are they the ones that need help? And it doesn't matter what category you're in or they're in. The fact is that Jesus is coming one day. All right? And I'm sorry, but if you're in need, or you're burdened down, we've got to relieve people. We have got to reach out. We've got to secure God's ministry when it comes to helping others. Blessing box is great. It really is. But we need more. Sister Deborah, we need more prayer. And I know your plate's full. So if your plate's full, that means you need help. So you need other people to pray also. I know sometimes I get a little complacent. I get a little, I don't know what the exact word I'm looking for, but I get comfortable where I'm at. And I forget that, you know what, Sister Deborah, especially this last couple of weeks, your plate has been tremendously full, which is great in one aspect. But you know, she still has a job. She still has a family. She still has personal needs. She still has a husband. And all of those sometimes have to take a back seat to what she has to do. So if you don't want to take the burden on praying with what she's praying, pray for the burden that the rest of the family has to deal with. It's not bad, but we're all wanting to need or be needed. We all have needs, just like her family, just like your family. So whenever you find your time just relaxing and not doing anything, that's great. But don't stay in that spot too long, because Sister Deborah, Brother John, Sister Jeanette, Matt, Miss Norma, Chris, Miss Debbie, they could sure use a prayer. So even though the blessing box is great, that helps others. But you can also help others by doing and lifting some of the burdens that they have. I often wonder, in the 3.5 years that Jesus spent in his ministry, full force in his ministry, how many times he just wanted to quit? I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, Sister Deborah, I know I'm picking on you today, but I want people to understand exactly how complicated it can get, how burdensome it can become sometimes, and how just tiresome you can become. Because I don't know about you, I'm guaranteed whenever I want to go to sleep, all I have to do is start praying or reading my Bible. Those two things can knock me out the quickest. But you just don't have time. I mean, when someone's in the hospital with a heart attack, or there's a family that's going through a death in their family, you just don't have time to just fall asleep. You have to stay up. You have to make sure that you got them covered. Now, helping others seems easy. It really does. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Sounds great, but it's so hard to do sometimes. It really is. Like, for instance, I'm going to tell myself this week. We got a phone call from a lady from this church, and her husband was having to be rushed to the hospital. And I just got off of not a long shift, but an unusual shift because I had to go in a little bit earlier. The day went not according to plan. So you had all that. And then I was getting ready to go home and honestly just grab something to eat, take a shower, and go to bed early. But we get this phone call, and she's in need. Not anything specific, mainly prayer. Physical need would be coming later. So I told myself, you know what, I'm just going to go home. I'm going to just grab a quick nap and get ready because I think it was going to be a long night at the hospital. So I did that. I didn't even take a shower. Upset my wife because I dirtied up the bed. I just changed clothes, hopped in bed, and I was just going to take a quick nap. Well, this was about 6:30 maybe. I woke up about 9:30 to a text explaining, well, I didn't really need to go to the hospital. Everything worked its way out, and at 9:30 she was going to come home and get some rest and stuff like that. But I questioned myself because those 3 hours that I was taking my little nap, what if something would have happened? Sure, I've got Sister Jeanette and I've got Sister Deborah. They knew about it. They had their responsibility. And even though I justified coming home and taking a nap, what if something would have happened? Well, you can look at it two ways. You can look that I was so in tune with God that I knew nothing was going to happen. Sounds great. It sounds just where the pastor needs to be. But to be honest with you, I knew I needed to get some rest so I could go up to the hospital so I could spend the night there with her and her husband and then get up and go to work. Selfishness in the midst of everything sounding good. Now, we've all been there. And I'm not saying that it was wrong or it was right. But I am saying if I was led by the Spirit to go home and take a nap, that's one thing. But if I was led by just the way I felt and my own wisdom, I could have made a tragic mistake. And then I got to thinking again. Sister Deborah has been on my mind. What if Sister Deborah just wanted to take a nap in the midst of someone really needing prayer? How many times do we get put in that situation? How many times do we want to just try to find an excuse to do what we want to do and everything else will work out? God will take care of it. But what God is really wanting is when it's those times when He really needs you. Well, let me put it to you this way. God really doesn't need you. God can handle everything by Himself. All right? He's more than capable of healing someone. He's more than capable of being there for the family. But I don't know what He allows us. He gives us the privilege of standing in for Him. Now there's a key. We still gotta let Him control. We still gotta let Him get the glory. It's not about us. It's not about us getting the glory. Wow, you know what? I prayed for him and everything went well. Thank God. That's all you have to do is just thank God. Don't look upon yourself. Don't look for praise and a trophy. Because let me tell you, on the next breath, there's going to be another problem and everything like that. Our job is never easy, it's never relaxing, and it's never over. We have job security when we work for Jesus. He allows us some PTO, vacation. But our job is never over. And we've got to realize that we've got to help others. We have got to find ways of helping. Again, the blessing box is great. What have you done for me lately? Jesus, God is never satisfied in one place. We've always got to be moving. That doesn't mean new programs. It's not what we're saying. Yesterday when we were leaving, or whenever I was leaving, Matt and Sis was still here. I went outside to get in my truck, saw a young man on a bicycle, all right, bringing food to place in the blessing box. I immediately talked to him. I came into the church. I said, Sis, do we have a gift bag? Do we have anything that we can send with this young man to give to his grandmother? Because his grandmother is the one that sent him up here to do that. We're helping others, and others are helping us. It's a little boy. It wasn't much food. But it's not about the food or anything like that, or how much, or what it was. It's about the fact that they are willing to help others also. Now, I would love to give this church the trophy, the ribbon. But if I do that, that's where it stops. It stops right here. We've got to get God the glory for stuff like that. All right? We have got to give God the glory. And then He's going to take that and He's going to build on that. Because if we just stop and give us the glory, then that's where it's going to stay. So I'm excited. I'm very joyful today because of a young boy on a bicycle on Brittonville Drive bringing a package of food to put in a blessing box. It is. It is. And then, you know, with the business meeting, and I was looking over the financial and where we were at last month and where we're at this month and stuff like that, and how much, I wouldn't say we overspent, but how much we spent last month on blessing people. And I'm sorry, if you want to put a dollar value on it, every penny is worth seeing that young man on a bicycle with food in his hand to bless other people. It is. And I don't think it would matter if this church had 100,000 or $100 left. Be excited that God is using this church, using that blessing box, using this community, using this city for something that we may not completely understand right now. And we may think that we have a little vision. But let me tell you, magnify that by a million, and that's God's plan. And there I am putting God in a box. Why a million? Why not 2 million? Why not 1 billion? Why not 1 trillion? I don't know what's after that, but I don't really care. Because to me, Sister said, I've been in this position just over a year. And there's been a lot of high points, not very many low points. But I consider yesterday one of the top 10 highest points. Whenever you can see a young man, well, you can say, well, his grandmother sent him. Okay, that's one thing, but the attitude that this young man had and the courtesy that he had and his manner that he presented to me whenever I was talking to him, it wasn't, he didn't want to do it. I think he was excited to do it for his grandmother. And I look at it this way. Maybe he was one of those lost boys, all right? Just visiting his grandmother or what have you. And his grandmother is telling him, hey, you know what? We've got a little country church down the road that is blessing this community, that has blessed me and your grandfather. I want to use you as a tool. I want you to be part of what they're doing. I want you to go and deliver this food to the blessing box so it doesn't bless the church, but it blesses other people in this community. And I mean, isn't that what it's all about? And that's why I'm so excited about this Thanksgiving dinner that we're going to be doing. I know it's going to be a lot of responsibility. I know that a lot of people, or some of you, may not buy into it completely. But if you can reach the point where I reached yesterday, when I saw someone giving back, and that's what we wanted. I mean, that's what God wants. God has given us so much. He's given us loved ones, but most important, He's given us the next breath. And all He wants us to do is give that breath to someone else. That life to someone else, that hope. When you have no hope and someone gives you hope, you got everything. Because you didn't have anything. Now you've got hope. Now you've got a vision. Now you have a purpose for the next breath you take. I'm excited about this church. I'm excited about the people. I know we've got several traveling, some working today, but that doesn't matter. I'm sure that they're either at work or they're with their family, traveling, whatever the case may be. But because of the impact this church and God has had, they're going to make a difference in someone's life today. So just think about this. I mean, what we got? 8, 9 people here? How many people do we have outside these walls that the ministry that Matt's working in has touched? It's just amazing. It's amazing that how God can just have a little building like this, but have such an impact on the world in so many ways. Internet's not a bad thing. Facebook isn't a bad thing. It's just another avenue that God can use to get His word out there. Now, the people that are putting that, now you got to understand, people looking at you, so make sure that you are upholding your part of the deal. Because if you're going to present hope and you're going to present helping others, then you got to have hope. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't give what you don't have. You just can't. Just think, God can't give anything He doesn't have. So what does He do? He gives us everything. So if you are not equipped, if you don't feel that you have the tools and necessary to go out there and help others, that's just Satan lying to you. God has equipped you with everything you need. Now what you need to do is you need to develop what He's given you. All right? And the best way to develop it is get out there and give it to someone else. Now, I know there's probably holes in that theory, but what I'm trying to tell you is God doesn't want you to keep what he gives you. All right? He gave you love. For what? To love your kids, to love your friends, to love your neighbor. I know, it's tough sometimes. Very difficult. Very difficult. But it's worth it. It's worth it because if you can give someone hope that doesn't have hope, you can give someone joy that doesn't have joy. It's just like if they don't have food, they're hungry. You give them food, they're not hungry anymore. God's working in our lives is that simple. People need food. I have food. I give people that food. People receive that food. They're not hungry. They go out and work. They get food, and then they give it to someone else. It's not difficult. God's made this part easy. All right? We sometimes get in lost. Well, are we really making a difference? Let's just put a dollar value on the blessing box. Let's say we spent $5,000 on that blessing box. Okay, because the world looks at it, business looks at it this way. Okay, you would think that you need to get a little profit from that. It's the way the world looks at it. And to be honest with you, us Christians, we sometimes look at it that way too. I mean, we want something for the effort that we're putting in that blessing box. I'm not saying it's right. Can't justify it in the Bible or anything like that. But let's be real. We invest in something, we expect a return. I do too. I got my return yesterday. From a 12-year-old boy, or somewhere along there, on a bicycle. With a Silsbee Tiger shirt on and dirty pants. Just a typical teenage boy. Because I saw God's working. I don't believe that. I look in everybody's life. I look in Matt's life. I look in his daughter's. Look, she's over there giggling and smiling at times. I look at Meemaw. I look at soon to be. And I see God working. But if we took the attitude that we're not going to help others, how much joy would we have today? So you know what? Whatever money we spend on that, well worth it. But you know what? Not everybody experienced, not everybody got to see what I saw. So you don't completely understand what I'm talking about today, other than, Brother Rob, that's great. I'm glad that a young man did that and all that. But I've seen teenagers that would disrespect the property of this church. I've seen teenagers not give a flip about church. Certainly not give a flip about helping others. But I saw that in that young man yesterday. And then I get on the streets of Silsbee downtown last night. And a lady we were talking to, or I was talking to, say, hey, you know what? I was going to come to your church on Wednesday. And then the mother spoke up and said, well, they don't have church on Wednesday. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to have to jump through the hoops and everything, but seriously, we need to start praying about a Wednesday night service. All right? And I know it's tough to make it on Wednesday night. That's another devotion, another study, that's another sermon, whatever you want to. God's work is not easy, but it's never finished. All right? It never is. Yes, you have to get up the next morning and go to work. It's the middle of the week. But someone wanted to come to church. Not just any church. I mean, you could go. I mean, First Baptist has church on Wednesday. Other churches have. But they wanted to come to this church. And I look at it just like this. If just one wants to come, would God deny them the opportunity, the place of worship? Just food for thought. We need to seriously start praying about getting teachers for Sunday school, kids for Sunday school, adults for Sunday school, so Chris and his ministry can prosper even more. Because I want Chris to succeed. I want Matt to succeed. I want each and every one of you that teaches on Sunday morning in other words, I want us to be able to help others. All right? And we can't do it with the door closed, the lights off, no one here. You just can't. And we don't have to feed them. We don't have to bring them drinks and stuff like that. But why not? Well, groceries expensive. I've got a God that has an open checkbook. All right? We are blessed to have a church that can support that. But most of all, we have a God that can deliver. Can I get an amen on that one? You know, as we approach 11:30, helping others. How can you not have joy? Just by saying that, helping others. Don't get lost in the absolutes, and don't get lost in the details. Just take helping others and find a way. How can I help others? Through prayer? Through helping someone pray? You know, even though I needed sleep that night, or at least I thought I did, let's just take, for an example, Sister Deborah again. I don't know how long she spent. It's not important. I don't care if it was 5 minutes or 5 hours. But did anyone get a little nudge? And this is how you know God's working. All right? Because Satan wouldn't do this. All right? You know, Sister Deborah is going to be pretty engulfed in praying tonight for that family. Why don't I bring her something for her and her family to eat tonight? Sonic, Subway, Kentucky Fried Chicken. You got to look for those things, because God's going to speak. When someone's burdened down, God doesn't want that person burdened down to the point where they can't function. All right? So He's going to send some help. But a lot of us are so engulfed in ourselves that we miss the opportunity to help others. And you can say, well, Pastor, why didn't the Lord tell you that? Maybe He did and I was sleeping. Maybe my job wasn't to go to the hospital, because He knew that at 9:30 the doctor in the hospital was going to send everybody home and there's nothing we can do. But Sister Deborah was up praying, and I'm sure all of you were too that knew about it. But it would have been nice, Sister Deborah, not having to have that burden and cooking for the family and house cleaning, whatever. All right? Well, she's got a son, she's got a husband, and all that. Don't look for excuses not to help someone. Look for excuses to help someone. All right, and I'm going to close by this statement right here. Jesus didn't claim to have the best explanation for God. Now listen to this. Jesus didn't claim to have the best explanation of God. Instead, he claimed to be the best explanation. So you don't have to go around trying to explain God in your life. Live it. Do it. Help others. That's the easiest, the simplest, and the most effective way. It is.